You are the words and the music. You are the song that I sing. You are the melody. You are the harmony. Praise to your name I will bring. You are the Lord of lords. You are the mighty God. You are the King of all kings. So now I give back to you the song that you gave to me. You are the song that I sing.
If you'll take your Bibles, turn it to Mark chapter 5 this morning. Mark chapter 5. And I know a lot of you have already been asking me questions this morning on checking on Joyce. Haven't heard anything this morning. I was waiting to talk to Bronson or Brentley this morning. Hadn't got a hold of them yet, but we will have an update on that sometime before this afternoon service. Ralph did. I talked to him yesterday. He did say, please tell everybody that we love and appreciate them, and we're not being mean, but we don't need any visitors or any phone calls right now. She's trying to get her rest. Joyce did fall. She had some sort of episode the other day and fell out and hit her head and had to get some staples in her head and has been just struggling with that. So they're trying to run some tests to find out what caused it, and we'll update you as soon as we hear something from that. So just keep them in your prayers, and if you want to send a card, he said just send the card to the house. Hopefully they may get to come home early in the week, so that way they won't get to return to you. So just keep them in your prayers as we seek to find out what happens with that. When we look at our theme for the month, we're looking at being a better witness of the truth. And if you watch any television, and we don't get to watch much television anymore, but if you have your television on at all, you'll notice that there are some crime shows that are on TV all the time. There's all kinds of crime shows, whether it's CSI Miami, CSI New Orleans, CSI New York, CSI Florence. That's not on there yet, but I think surely it's coming if they keep going with it. You got Law and Order Special Victims Unit, the regular Law and Order something else, and Law and Order this. And it's become so much a part of our lives that we even can recognize the theme songs, we can recognize what's going on, and we like those crime dramas as they play out. We like to watch what happens in the courtroom. We like to see the witnesses take the stand. We like to hear the lawyers question them to try to find out the answer of who did it, who did what, why they did it, what was their motive, was there any eyewitnesses, is there any sort of evidence that proves they did this or that they didn't do this. And it really consumes us when we get caught up in it. We want to know more as we watch these shows. Well, there's something to that, because I think that people crave that kind of truth. We want to know what happened. We want to know how this plays out. We want to get down to the bottom of it and see if this actually did happen. And when we look at these television shows like that, we see these eyewitnesses come to the stand, and they'll take the stand, and they'll come up and they'll say something about what happened, and they'll give their record of the things that occurred. Why should we be any different? After all, we're called to be lights into the world. We're called to be a city that's set on a hill. We are called to be all these different things that God has called us to be called out and to be that light that shines so that everybody can see who we are. We're called to be ready to give an answer to every man who has a question as best we can, for the hope that is within us, to look for the truth and to present that truth so that others might see. We're taught to go into all the world and to teach the gospel. That was there for the disciples, but it relates to us too, where the world means our homes, our places of employment, and our friends. And we're taught to go out and to be an eyewitness. Now, I know that none of us have actually seen Jesus' empty tomb. All right, well, I'll take that back. I think Gary did go to, Gary and Alicia Willis, they did go to the Holy Lands, and maybe they got to see the tomb that was there, if that was it. But none of us actually got to witness Jesus, the risen Jesus, in physical form. We didn't see that. We didn't get to look at the miracles that He performed. We didn't get to see all of those things that He was involved with. But what we do have, we have the record of it, yes. But I can be an eyewitness to you of what happens in my life. I can be a witness to you of how Jesus made a difference in my life. And I think that's all that Jesus really wants us to do. Now, don't get me wrong, it may be all, but it's a great deal of stuff involved in that. I think He just wants me to give an eyewitness account of how God changed my life. To see where I was and see where I'm going and see where I can become. And once I see that, and once I present that to you, I believe that draws people. I believe that's that crime drama played out. I believe people watch that and they're compelled. And that grace of Jesus that He offers to us, that grace that God has bestowed upon us is irresistible if we really do look at what He has for us. If we really do try to see the sacrifice that He made for us, then when people hear it, they want to respond to it. So I want you to take the story here that's mentioned in Mark chapter 5. I want you to turn your Bibles there and let's look at it. And as we look at it, I want you to imagine as this story, as it's played out. Let's read it first and then we'll talk about some of the things that happen in it. They came to the other side of the sea, to a country of the Gadarenes. When Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there He met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs. No one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For after he had been bound with shackles and chains, but he would wrench the chains apart, and he broke the shackles into pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on this mountain he was always crying out, cutting himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before Him. He cried out with a loud voice, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he was saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." He begged him earnestly not to send him out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him, saying, "Send us to the pigs, lest we enter them." So he gave them permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea, and they drowned into the sea. The herdsmen fled and told it in the city and in the country. And the people came to see what had happened. They came to Jesus, and they saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had had the legion sitting there, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it described it to them, what had happened to the demon-possessed man and to the pigs. And they began to beg Jesus to depart from their region. As he was getting in the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. He did not permit him, but he said to him, "Go home to your friends. Tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how He has had mercy on you." He went away and began to proclaim in Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And everyone marveled. You know, I'm sure if this had happened today, you would have PNN, the Palestinian News Network, or the Damascus Daily, or you would have the news networks of the day. You would have them there, and they would be interviewing. They would be standing there giving reports about what had happened. And if they'd had television cameras back then and television and multimedia like we do, they would have had all kinds of stuff set up. And the headline would have been something along the lines of, "Herdsman loses 2,000 of his herd of pigs due to the fact of a man casting out a demon." What was this demon? What happened to this man? Why would this man cause a farmer to lose his entire herd? And the focus would have been taken off of the man. But when they find out that this happened because of a demon-possessed man, a man that had been walking out of the tombs, a man that had been living with the dead people in the caves, a man that had been naked, that had shackles on his hands and his feet and would break them apart because of the strength of the demons of legion that were in him. Then they saw him clothed. Maybe one of those reporters would have went up to him and said, "Tell us what happened." So I want you to imagine for just a moment we're here in a courtroom and we've got a witness stand right here, and we bring this man up. The man who had been naked and out of his mind, possessed by a demon, now has all of his faculties intact. In fact, he could speak pretty we could understand what he's saying. He's making a lot of sense, and maybe he's even wearing a three-piece suit, has his hair combed and been shaved. Maybe he looks really nice, and he stands before us, and we ask him, "Do you promise to tell the truth? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help your God?" And he says, "Yes, I do." And the man begins his story. And maybe he begins his story something along the lines of this. "This is who I was. This is who I was before all this happened. I was a man that was not in control. I was possessed by this demon." And before we get into that, I guess we could look at this and see. We could, mention this just by note. I don't. This is not the time or the place to ask us whether or not this is an actual demon. Because I believe it is. It's the Bible. I believe this is an actual demon. Does this kind of demon possession happen today? I do not think so. Because when you look, if you'll look in your Bible, you can look in 1 John chapter 3, verse 8. It says that part of the job that Jesus had was to come to this earth and to destroy the works of the devil while he was on this earth. And I think that's exactly what he did. That while the devil was roaming around before the resurrection, the devil had free reign and was able to enter the personalities of human beings and to control their actions. And this specific man, I think that's what's happened to him. And here he is. This is a man who was not in control of his own life. If he was in control of his own life, you think he would be living in tombs? You think he would be walking around naked? You think he would be distancing himself from the city, from everybody else? You think he'd be crying out? And even this, what you might not have caught, you think he would be able to break these chains that they had bound him with? I've never been bound with chains. I've had those pretend handcuffs on. Never had the real handcuffs, just so you know. But I've had those little pretend handcuffs on, that you can take and you can just pop them off because they're just plastic. Those shackles that they put on people, they're made to stay, right? They're made to hold them down, to keep them where they cannot move. And typically the shackles would be shackles, these chains would be on their feet, and they would be on their wrists, and they would be connected. And they did this to this man because he was hurting himself and was a danger to other people. But he takes these chains that's in there. This is how I know this is not just this man. This is how I know this man has been possessed by the devil. Is because he's got this superhuman strength that he's able to just break these chains. This man says, before all of this happened, I was not in control. But even as I was there, it felt like I had so many different beings inside of me controlling my emotions, controlling my actions. And in fact, when they speak out, one of them speaks and says, "Our name's Legion." The Legion, if you look with the Roman language and what a Roman soldier, it could be anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers would incorporate a legion. So we're going to say 2,000 because he cast this out into the 2,000 pigs, into the swine. There was about 2,000. So we're going to say there are 2,000 demonic forces, individual demonic forces inside of this man that the devil is controlling, causing him to do all of these things. This here is not some case of mental illness. And this man says, I was not in control. I was captivated. I was enslaved. I was not able to control myself. I was cutting myself with stones. There is a condition that a lot of preteens and adolescents get, that when they feel like they're trying to express pain and they want to express pain, they express it inappropriately and they find themselves cutting themselves. It's not uncommon to find teenagers that will take knives and razor blades to cut themselves to feel some sort of release. And it's a deeper rooted problem that's there. It's some problems of emotions that they can't deal with, that they're trying to learn how to deal with. And it's a diagnosed mental illness problem that they try to help, an emotional issue rather, that they try to help, that psychiatrists and doctors and ministers and counselors try to help teenagers do that. I've talked to some myself, but I have never once seen a single person cut themselves with stones. I mean, when you think of a rock, a sharp rock, that you would just continue to hit yourself with until you would break the skin open, until you would bleed. This man says, it wasn't me. Why would I do anything like that to my body? Why would I do that? I was not in control. Not only was I not in control, I was damaged. I was damaged. You know what it means to say that someone has damaged goods? You look at this man, he's living in the caves. Now let me tell you, the tombs, one version says tombs, one version says caves. So let's make sure we understand this. Even when you look at the Old Testament, and you look at even in the New Testament when Jesus was buried in that new tomb that was cut out of stone, these tombs, they were caves. And what they would do with these caves, like the cave of Machpelah, maybe you're familiar with that in Genesis. Abraham takes his wife Sarah and buries her in the cave of Machpelah. When Abraham, he dies, he's carried back and he's buried in the cave of Machpelah. That cave, what they would do is they would be some sort of a cave that they would have, and there would be some sort of a table kind of thing that could cut out of the rock, and they would take the body of the person that had died, and they would bind them up with the wrappings, the burial cloths, and they would lay the body there, and then when someone else died, they would go back into the tomb. They would pick up the remains of the bones that were left of the person that had died where the body had decomposed. They would put them in an ossuary, which is a burial box. They would take this stone box and they would put the bones into the box and they would put the lid on it, and they would take the box and they would carry it to the back of the cave, and this would serve somewhat of a mausoleum type thing, to where when a new body came they would set it here, and then when a new body was ready to come, they would take the old and put it in the box, the remains, and set it aside. So there would be tons of, and some caves would have several ossuaries in it. And they found these. This shows proof of this is how they did it. Why would you go live there? Because if you are a Jew, and we kind of get the impression that this guy is somewhat of maybe a Jew. If he's not a Jew, he's familiar with the Judaism, and the people there had pushed him aside out of the city. Because if you touch a dead body, you realize you're unclean. Let's say if that happened to us today, and you come up on a car accident, and there was someone there that had died, and you were there trying to give them CPR, and you could not revive them. They had died right there on the scene, and you were trying to help. That if you came back into the church building, then we would all have to step back and shout out, "Unclean, unclean, you need to go bathe. You need to go shower. You need to have your clothes washed." Because we're not able to touch you. God did that for a reason, because of the infection that could be passed on. This man would not have done this normally, because if he's living in the caves with the dead, that automatically means he's not going to have any contact with any other human being. Nobody wants to be around him. I was damaged, he says. Before all this happened, I was somebody that was not in control. I was damaged. I was desperate. I was not a productive member of society. And if you'll notice, when we look in Mark 5, we notice the cries that he has when he cries out, crying out for need. When Jesus stepped out of the boat, immediately there he met a man out of the tombs, a man with an unclean spirit. He lived in the tombs. No one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. He had been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart and broke them in two. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the mountains, he was always crying out. What do you think that cry would have been? If he's not in control. Maybe there's part of his spirit that's trying to gain control, and every little while he might get a little bit of help me, please, someone help me, take care of me, get this out of me, before they would consume him and take him over. Oh, what a story this man would tell. He said, before it all happened, this is who I was. But now, when this man came to me, this man changed me. The first thing I did when I saw him, when I noticed this man, I recognized his power. I recognized the authority that he had. Look in chapter 5, verse 6. When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran, fell down before him, and crying out with a loud voice, he says, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." And Jesus cried to this man, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit. What is your name?" "Legion, for we are many." Even though the man was not in control, I'm sure there might have been some of him that knew these demons when they were speaking out for him. And he noticed that even the power that was controlling him recognized this power that Jesus had, calling him Son of the Most High God. Before all this happened, I was damaged, I was desperate, I was not in control. But when this man came, I recognized that he had some type of power, some type of authority. I fell before him. These demons here that are taking over where he can't control. But that word "fell down before," you know, in other versions, you know what that word means? It means worshipped. Whether or not these demons are the ones worshiping, or maybe the man is able to get a little bit of composure of himself, and he comes and he bows down and he worships there for a moment because he sees him and he knows something among the demons are afraid of this man. They recognize his power. And he summoned the demons to leave. The demons knew who he was and they were afraid. If you look at verse 10 there. He begged him earnestly not to send them out into the country. Begged them earnestly is that imperfect tense, which means they kept on imploring him, "Please, please don't send us out. Please, 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 please don't send us out." Letting us know that they knew he had the power to do it. When I met this man, he had some sort of power. But then he cured me. Look at verse 11. A great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. They begged him, saying, "Send us into the pigs and let us enter them." So he gave them permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea, and they drowned into the sea. This man, when he came, he took those demons, every last one of these demons, he took them and forced them out of my body, out of my life, out of my soul. And when that happened, I knew that they were gone. I could feel my faculties coming back into place. I knew who I was, and I looked down and I realized that I was naked. I looked down and I realized that I had been cut, and I tried to stop myself over and over again, and I couldn't do it. I kept trying and trying. But when I met this man, he had the power, and the power that he had within my life worked within my life and changed me and cured me of the problem I had. I let him control. And why the pigs? I don't know, church. I don't know why the demons wanted to go to the pigs. I don't know why they chose to ask permission for that. And I really don't think the demons knew that the pigs would run rampant and run wild and then run into the sea and die. I don't think they really knew that that would happen. They did. This man, he had some sort of power and authority. He was able to cure me. He showed me something that no one else had showed me before. He showed me my worth. He showed me how valuable I was. I don't know how much a pig costs today. You know, I think you can get some old pot-belly pigs. I think you can pay a lot of money for those things. But it seems like every once in a while you'll find somebody in the Courier Journal trying to give one away. I don't know how much these pigs cost. But I assume 2,000 of them is not something that's just going to be change out of your pocket. When Jesus tossed these demons out, He let me know, you're worth more to me than a whole herd of these swine, this whole man's living, this whole man's life, this farmer's life. You are worth more to me than his financial security. Nobody had ever showed me that value before. In fact, people ran away from me. They considered me dead. My family had wrote me off long ago. But this man showed me that I was valuable. Valuable enough that he was willing to do whatever it took, even if it meant these 2,000 pigs dying, to give me my chance, to free me of my burden. Then He gave me a new purpose. You see, what was so strange to this man, I don't think he understood. When you look in verse 16, it says, after all of this happened, the people began to be afraid. Those who had seen it described to the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and the pigs. But you notice verse 17? It's not that they went and shook Jesus' hand and said, man, you saved this man. You did a great thing for this man. You gave him life again. No. As a matter of fact, they went to Jesus and they begged him, please leave. Because maybe they were afraid. What's He going to do to my herd? What's He going to do to my goats, my pigs, my cows, my life? What's He going to do to my house? Is He going to take that away from me for the sake of someone else? And they were afraid and they begged Jesus to leave. But this man, he says, this man changed me. He gave me a new purpose. This man went to Him and said, please, let me go with you. If you'll notice the rest of the story, he says, please, let me go with you. Let me go with you. Permit me to go with you. But Jesus said, no. No. Don't you think that's strange? Would you not want to follow this man that had done this for you? To maybe be his servant now, to do his bidding for him, to take care of him. Any need he had, you would be more than willing to provide it for him because he gave you your life back. He put you back in control, or rather, he allowed you to let him have control. You're whole again. You have a life again. You can live again. And you want to give back, but He says no. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home, and I want you to tell everybody in your family, in your hometown, what happened. And maybe the man would close out his remarks by saying this, and this is what I have done for you today. I've told you exactly what happened. Man, that's a compelling story, isn't it? What an eyewitness account that somebody like that would give, that this is who he was. He was not in control. He was damaged goods. He was desperate. And then he met Jesus, and Jesus, he showed him His authority. He came in his life with authority, and he healed him of whatever he had. He showed him his worth, and He gave him a new purpose in life. Either, if you don't know where we're going with this, either you haven't been listening, or you just hadn't caught on yet. Because if you look at that story, that is very similar to ours, isn't it? Because when you look at our life, or myself, just me, this is what I can say. This is me. This is who I was. I was not in control. The Bible says to whatever a man is overcome, to that he is enslaved. And I was overcome with sin. Paul says in Romans 7 that it wasn't just me. I wanted to do the good things and the right things in verse 23, but I didn't do the things I wanted to do. I did the very things I hate. And I found out that it was the sin that was inside of me that was controlling me. Yes, I was in control of my life, but sin just took over in my life and just caused me to do things that I hated. When I did them, I knew what I was doing, and it felt good, but when I looked back, I felt miserable for what I had done. I tried to stop, but I couldn't. And when we look at these things that we have in our life, these sins that we've got, and for me, I was not in control. I could not handle it on my own. And as a matter of fact, not only was I'm not in control, I was damaged. My spirit was broken. Before I came to know Jesus, I just didn't, there was no hope for me. Even Paul says that in Ephesians 2, that there's no hope without God. Without Christ, I had no hope. I was broken. I was desperate. Maybe you tried to find relief in a lot of other things. A lot of people say they drink to find peace, to escape. They do drugs to escape. They go to pornography to escape because they don't like the life that they live. They're desperate, and any kind of feeling that they can get to feel good about life and themselves is what they'll give into, or to do away with the feeling that they have. That's what they do. That's who I was before. I was not in control. I was broken. I was desperate. I was just like this demon-possessed man. But then, this is how he changed me. Once I listened to his story of love, compassion, and forgiveness, I couldn't stay away. It's like he had a power that just drew me to. I could not imagine how someone would love me so much, someone who had never done anything for him would love me so much to make me want to be part of his life, that he would be willing to. He showed me how valuable I was to him by giving his son for me. He showed me my worth. I saw his power. He showed me my worth. He took away my sin. Just as the demon-possessed man, where he cast him out, he took my sins away. That was the whole purpose of what he came for, was to seek and to save those of us who had those issues, those sins, to remove those from our lives. We see what he did for us in the same sense. And he gave me a new purpose. And when I go into the world, just like the man went back into his hometown, the people didn't want to understand. They didn't want to know what happened. Now that I'm a Christian, there are some people that I can't hang around. I used to have a couple friends that I was really close to. They were outside of the church. They were of the world, and they did some things of the world. And you know what? I'm friends with them now on Facebook. I will say something to them every once in a while. I'll invite them to church every once in a while. They'll see something of maybe a blog that I've written about God, and maybe they'll like or something. But those guys, I don't have anything to do with their life anymore. You know why? Because they don't want anything to do with mine. Because they know I'm not like that anymore. I don't live that lifestyle anymore. I'm different. Because the power that this man had that I met in Jesus changed me and gave me a new purpose. And just like in the story, they didn't want any part of it. There are those out in the world that don't want any part of this either. But this man gave me a new purpose, and I want to give my life to him. And you know what he says to me? He says, no, you stay where you are. You stay where you are and you tell the story of what happened to you, to your family, to your co-workers, and to your friends. You see that parallel? You know, this is going to sound really strange, but I guess if I really look back at it and think, I'm really thankful that these demons possessed this man. Because if these demons had not have possessed this man, I might not have saw the parallel of my life. Because my story is just like his. And you know what? If you're honest with yourself, so is yours. This is who you were before you met him if you're a Christian. You were damaged goods. You were not in control. You were desperate. But when you met him, you saw what kind of power and authority he had. You heard his message. The story of the cross, it compelled you. It showed you that you had worth. He showed you that you had value like no one else had ever done. And where you weren't in control, he took control. And he took your sin away. And he gave you a new purpose. And the world doesn't understand, does it? The world just doesn't understand. But now you do. And your job now is to be a better witness of your story. So look at your life this morning. Have you been that witness to others? Have you tried to even do that? I mean, what if this man had went home? What if this man had this happen to him? What if he had these demons cast out of him? And what if he had done this? What if he had went home and sat home and never did anything else again? You know what you would do? You'd criticize that man. You'd criticize him and you'd say, how dare he not take advantage of the gift that God had given to him and changed his life so that he could go home and mope around on the couch and maybe say a prayer every once in a while, or go to worship, go to a synagogue, or go to a temple every once in a while just to pay tribute and to make you feel good about yourself. You would say, how dare you do that after where you were? Look at your life and see what kind of witness you've been. Because I guarantee you, we all have a new purpose. We all could be doing better than what we are. We can be that better witness of the truth. Maybe you need to change. Maybe the sin's controlling you, and I've introduced you to something that you want. Some peace you can have. It's in Jesus. He can take your sin away through faith in Him, through repentance of sin, through confessing His name, having your sins washed away in baptism, rising to walk in newness of life. Because you tried other things to stop what you're doing, but you can't. You can't do it alone because you have to have Him. He's the only power that can take it away. Whatever you need. Be that witness this morning as we stand, as we sing that song in the music.
You are the song that I sing. You are the melody. You are the harmony. Praise to your name I will bring. You are the Lord of lords. You are the mighty God. You are the King of all kings. So now I give back to you the song that you gave to me. You are the song that I sing.